Oh, wait.
So there's nobody here to represent Anderson?
No, he won't be there. I had to make that very clear that he will not be there. But his brother will receive it on but he's going to do a podcast. And that's going to go out over all the television,
Okay.
I'm sure you have your screens on everything.
You might want to check my signature, make sure I sign my real name.
I think you're doing a good job.
Just start putting a big X.
Just initial them. D squiggle, M squiggle.
Ready, Debbie?
Yep, all set.
I'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alsup.
Here.
Shield.
Here.
Musgrave.
Here.
Rankin.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Powers.
Here.
McKinney.
Here. First item of business tonight is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the Village Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda. What is the pleasure of council?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Amended, rather. Thank you.
Support.
There's motion and support. Roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsup.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Here.
Shield.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried.
Who supported that? Richard or Brian?
Yes.
I agree with Chris.
Okay.
They both answered it about the same time.
I know.
I
So,
think,
who are we going to record as support?
Thumb wrestling. No.
I'll give it to Richard.
there you go.
Thank
That's
you.
how we resolve things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is public comment. We have a presentation on the amended agenda by Chief McGee. Good evening.
Thank you for having us up here again. I think most of you know Jeremy Watson. He's been a firefighter, EMT, emergency medical technician with the department for 6 years. He's also does code enforcement, is a fire inspector, and really he would sweep if you asked. Whatever you need, he'll do for us. So he's got all his training. He's a dedicated employee, and we have effective on the 2nd of January promoted him to fire marshal. And part of those duties include as he has done in the past, inspecting every business in the community every year. And because of that, his past work, he was a big part of us bringing the ISO rating down to a 3. Not very many communities are able to hit every business in the way that he does it. So we're happy for that. And the community appreciates it just because of what it saves us and what he really catches ahead of time. So with that, we're going to pin him tonight and hopefully not poke him. So
Good luck.
This is called piling on in football. Sir, appreciate it. Thank you, Chief. Congratulations.
Maybe he'll go.
Congratulations.
public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by up to an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public, we ask, please state your name and address for the record. Any members of the public with anything to offer this evening? I'm sorry, did you hear me? Any members of the public? Hearing none, we'll move on.
Two of these to sign.
There is no old business.
You need a pen.
New business, item 1, Holly Community Coalition update. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Susan Papel, Director of the Holly Area Community Coalition, and with me, Nick Clem, Director also of the Holly Area Community Coalition. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We wanted to bring some information to the council on just what the coalition has been up to. We haven't been here in a couple of years, so we wanted to kind of bring you up to date on some of the great things that we have been doing in the community. We wanted to bring you some information. Well, for one thing, that we received our Drug-Free Communities Grant Program. This is our 10th year of receiving that. So it's a continuation grant. We have to reapply each year and meet a lot of standards, and we received that 10th year. And the sad thing about that is it's the last year. It's a 10-year cycle, and this will be our last year of bringing this funding to Holly. It has brought us $125,000 to the coalition each year for the past 10 years. So we're very proud of that, and probably if anyone asked me what the greatest thing that's come out of those 10 years, I'd have to say that we're most proud of all the accomplishments for sure, but all of the partnerships that we've been able to make. And a lot of them are here in this room. We are so happy to have all the partnerships we've made with the council, and being able to present to you some of our issues and concerns about our community. We've been able to work with the DDA and the Chamber of Commerce, the police, the fire, the many businesses within the community, even the DPW. They have been so gracious, and all of you have been in all of our work, whether it's hanging signs or all of the things that we've been able to do. We have coming up, working with the police and the fire, a Narcan training for our community, coming up actually a week from today. We've been able to do the teen block party and work with all of our businesses downtown, the texting and driving campaign, as well as many other campaigns throughout the community. We've worked with Ladies Night Out, Sight, Sounds, and Taste, the Blues, Brews, and Barbecue. We've worked with the Moose and different groups down there to help have a safe family events for our community. And so with all of this, our prevention efforts have really, with all the partnerships we've been able to have really, you've really helped us out a lot in all of our prevention efforts. So we really want to thank you a lot for that. And so our Drug-Free Communities program brought us more out into the community. But we also have a 3-year grant that we're in our 3rd year cycle of from Oakland County Health Network and the Office of Substance Use Disorders, and also a grant from the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities, which is an umbrella organization. And I didn't know if you knew this, but there are 19 coalitions in Oakland County, and we work very closely with them to not only bring prevention throughout the community, but we support each other in our own individual communities, because each one in Oakland County is very different. So we work with them, and with all of this, and with that one big grant going away, we don't plan to stop. We hope that we're going to continue to have community support after this next 10 year, and then with those Oakland County grants, we'll for sure, and maybe other possibility of other grants in the community, we'll for sure continue our efforts. And by the way, this is our 20th year here in Holly, of the Holly Coalition. So we're not going to go away. We do so many great things, I think, for the kids. I wanted to tell you too. So this is we did a survey of the students, and every 2 years, that's when we try to come and report to you the information that we've gathered from our students. They participated. Our 7th, 9th, and 11th graders participated in the Michigan Profile for Healthy Youth survey. And while we have a lot of concerns, we do have some concerns. Most of the information that we got from the students is very good. The data shows, and I'm going to leave a copy of our key findings report for you, but our data shows that the 9th and 11th grade report 75 to 80% of them report not using alcohol. Between 77 and 84% do not use marijuana, and only just a very small percentage of them use prescription drugs that were not provided for them. So to us, this is really good news. The bigger percentage of kids are not using, and that's excellent for information for us, and it drives us to continue to do what we do every day. We are, however, concerned about the percentage of students who their perception of risk of the use of using alcohol and marijuana as not risky from last year to this year has gone down. So for that number, we would want to see that one going up, that they think it is more risky. And so it's important for us, like I said, to continue to do what we do with our youth and our education programs, and to continue to work with families on the risks of using alcohol and marijuana with, for our students. So some of the things that the coalition is doing and has been doing this past year, and we're very fortunate to work closely with the Holly area schools, and we have an elementary and middle school program called Life Skills, where we teach character building and information about the dangers of alcohol and other drug use. We have what we call an Asset Mentor program. It's for our 5th grade class going into 6th grade, and we help them understand some of the dangers they're going to face as they go into middle school and going forward, that the decisions that they make are so important. We also do a Safe, Smart, and Successful in Middle School lunch program for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And we also do a summer camp with that same Safe, Smart, and Successful curriculum for our 5th graders going into 6th grade. Again, those transition years are so important for our students. That's 6th grade, 5th grade going into 6th grade. And then we also do another program for our 8th graders going into 9th grade called Above the Influence, trying to help them see some of the importance of those big decisions that they're going to be making. We also do a youth dialogue day up at the up at the high school, and some of you have been involved in that, so you know how important that is, where we meet with like 60, 70 students, and we have that coming up actually March 1st. So if any of you are interested, please let me know at some point. But we get together community leaders, and we sit down with them, and we discuss different issues that they have and concerns that they have, and we try to, hopefully it can help you in making your decisions about youth, and it helps us for sure in our programming. Nick is also trained in Safe Talk, so we do suicide prevention awareness, and we also have at our high school a youth action board, which brings many campaigns here to the community. And at the middle school, we have what's called the STAND group, students taking a new direction, and they do similar programs throughout the middle school for their kids. So with these programs, we've been able to reach about 1,500 students each year with this positive messaging, plus positive community activities like the Teen Block Party that I mentioned before, and our Family Fun Tailgate event, and some of our other programs throughout the school, whether it's Community Play Day, School and Community. So now Nick wants to talk to you about some of our recent marijuana legislation and some of the coalition concerns regarding this issue.
Thank you.
So yeah, we also wanted to briefly talk about the newly law legalizing marijuana, and while we were hoping that it would not get passed in this way, we do know now that communities have an option to opt out of having commercial retail within their community. And as you know, we are primarily a youth organization, and our prime concern with substances is with youth use. and the effect on our community. And as we have seen in other states who have these in their areas, through studies that they have done, things like from Lancet and Oregon Research Council, Center for Addiction, Rocky Mountain High, that have done these studies, they found the youth perception of risk that we were just talking about going down in those areas, and also the youth use rising in those areas. And so, as well as other issues that have come up along the surrounding neighborhoods where those storefronts were. So part of this is, of course, how youth see it in their community, how they perceive it, and then seeing it as being okay in their use. And so, it's one thing to decriminalize marijuana. It's an entirely different thing to legalize an industry and a commercialization, and that's what we're concerned about. And so many communities, even particularly in Colorado, that were once okay with these industries being in their areas, are now backpedaling and trying to find ways at least to slow down the process and even trying to get them out of their areas. So for that alone, we feel the Holly area should consider the opt-out option with this. And this doesn't prohibit the use of marijuana of adults 21 and older, but what it does eliminate are the ads, the signs, the storefronts, the displays, and all that goes along with commercialization of really any industry, but of marijuana in this case. And you really only have to Google other states that have, or other communities that have opted in with this, and see the opposite of what that would look like. And this isn't really something that's just happened with marijuana. Through the last 50 years, there's been tighter restrictions on advertising, on storefronts, on placements of both alcohol and tobacco. And you might ask, well, why is that? It's because those things make a difference in youth use and the availability that it has on youth. And, if we would roll back, the clock on just, tobacco in particular, I think many would do a lot of things different in light of the mess that it caused in the health of our communities and especially to our youth. So far, there have been at least 60 other communities throughout Michigan that have already chosen to opt out. And many more are coming and are on the way. Every month, more and more are doing that. Some of the places that are in our area are Fenton, Linden, Monroe, Troy, Heartland Township, and Howell. And in fact, if you look at states who have legalized marijuana already, typically 75 to 80% of those communities choose to opt out of having the business side of it in their community. And so when you look at the problems that many of those states have had with legalization, it's come with only about 20 to 25% of the communities opting in. Another concern that you may have with this is that, well, this is what the people have voted for. But what we don't know is that just because someone voted to legalize doesn't mean that they have voted for a storefront or for commercialization in their neighborhood. It doesn't mean that they're all for the industry and commercializing that goes along with that. And actually we found that within polls, they found that if given a choice between commercialization and just decriminalization of marijuana, that most would choose decriminalization. But we weren't given that choice. That wasn't a choice that we had. And so in essence, this is like keeping the decriminalization, but yet opting out on the other side of it. Another hope that's been tossed around is with the money that might come in from this. But we've seen over and over again that the money really isn't there when you look at other issues that go along with it. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Colorado has said there's been no net gain that they have seen in Colorado, and that's been mostly washed out by other things like added public health, public safety, and regulatory cost of commercialization. So that's what our hope is for our communities surrounding the Holly area. If for some reason fully opting out is not what the board decides, I ask that you then take a long look at regulations, zoning ordinances, things that affect the where, the when, the how that such operations can be run their business. If that's the case, I ask you to look at things like buffer zones, of course, around schools, parks, daycares, residential areas, and other things that go along with that. And then things like signage, delivery hours of operation, security, record keeping, and other those types of performance standards. And again, this would not prohibit the use of marijuana in someone's home, but would only prohibit the further commercialization and marketing of the drug. And if we can help in any way in that, if we can, partner in some way in doing that, we obviously would be more than happy to do that. And of course, going along with that, there is a little bit of urgency on deciding with this because they have about a year, they say, as things are kind of getting worked out within the state. So thank you so much for allowing us to be here today and sharing what the coalition is doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the new business agenda is consideration of the Village of Holly Parks Commission request to declare February 22nd, 2019 as Andrew Anderson Day. Chris, Mr. Rankin, you're the chairman of the Parks Commission.
So Andrew Anderson, as many of you know, is a professional bowler who was born and raised in Holly and was named the PBA 2018 Bowler of the Year. So February 22nd, the Parks Commission is having a fundraiser bowling or
Pins for Parks.
there you go. Thank you. Pins for Parks. February 22nd at Holly Lanes. So we chose that day to designate as Andrew Anderson Day. I think, Rick, you probably know a little bit more of the history of Andrew, if you want to chime in.
Just a little bit more. Andrew, make sure I'm talking in here. Andrew Anderson is, Chris says, is from Holly. And if you read his bio on Google, it's really quite impressive. This is a young man that's really done it right. He went to Holly High School, graduated, went on to Oakland University, graduated with a degree in education. While he was at Oakland University, he was very active in the bowling and won all kinds of national and international awards. And 2 years ago, he went professional. In his first full year as a professional, he was the second youngest person ever to win the PBA Bowler of the Year. Now, for some, that might not make any, no big deal. But really, for the bowling community, it's like the Heisman Trophy. It's a huge, huge deal. And this all came about because several people approached me and said, why in the world aren't you even acknowledging this young man? And I said, no, that's a good question. And as I started looking into it and our Pins for Parks, I said, this might be a perfect fit for us to declare Andrew Anderson Day and then go on the 22nd to give him his proclamation and his awards. The one thing I will have to say is, unfortunately or fortunately, he's on the Pro Bowlers Tour, so he's not being able to be there that night, but his brother will accept the awards on his behalf. And we're hoping to have a podcast with him on all the screens so he can accept the award that way. But we don't want to mislead anybody thinking he's going to be there at the Pins for Parks, because he will not. He'll be on tour. But this young man is an incredible credit to not only our community, but to the whole state. This young man has really done it right. I've never met him, but people that have talked to him and know him says he's just a terrific, terrific guy at 23 years old. So it's our recommendation from the Parks that we designate February 22nd as Andrew Anderson Day. And that's about it. Anything else, Chris?
Is that a motion?
I've got a proclamation I was just writing up as you were speaking. I just wrote this up.
Okay.
And typed it and everything.
Look at that. Look at that.
Good for you.
Teamwork.
That's great.
Village of Holly, Holly, Michigan proclamation. Whereas Andrew Anderson was born May 10, 1995 and is from Holly, Michigan. Whereas he bowled for Holly High School in 3 of his 4 years there. Whereas Mr. Anderson bowled collegiately at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. Whereas Mr. Andrew Anderson won the 2018 United States Bowling Congress Masters. Whereas he also won the Chris Schenkel PBA Player of the Year Award in 2018. Whereas the Village of Holly is inspired by Andrew Anderson's dedication and success with his bowling career. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Council of the Village of Holly, Michigan, that February 22, 2019 be proclaimed as Andrew Anderson Day. And I'd ask somebody to move that we adopt that.
I make a motion that we adopt that.
And I'll support it.
There's a motion by our two members of the Park Commission. Thank you. I think that's appropriate. Roll call vote, please.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. And I'll build the frame for this, too.
You busy little beaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it all.
Item 3 under new business is consideration of 2019 budget workshop water sewer rate study.
At the December 11th council meeting, we talked about the scheduling of budget workshops. We also had a presentation that night from Plant Moran, who did the annual audit or gave that report on that night. And they talked about the need of and the importance of talking about water and sewer rates. And so we have laid out 3 separate study sessions, budget workshops that we would recommend. The first focusing solely on water and sewer and that rate structure. And so the dates that we recommend are February the 9th, 2019, March the 16th, 2019, and March the 30th, 2019. All of these are Saturdays. We would propose that they start at 9 a.m. in the morning. They usually wrap up between 12 and 1. That gives us an extra month then if during these 3 budget study sessions we have, if we feel we need additional time, we can schedule more in April. But I think the rate study in February is important because that kind of sets the platform for a couple of our departments as we move forward once we determine what that rate structure will be.
Do we need a motion or just a consensus?
No, you need a motion, please.
Well, then I'll make the motion that we schedule the following budget workshops, February 9th, March 16th, and March 30th, 2019.
I'll support, but I won't be at the 16th meeting. I'll be out of town.
There's a motion in support. Any further discussion or questions in the matter? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 4 on new business. Consideration of the council rules of procedure amendment.
So what you have before you is a copy of the rules of procedures that council had previously adopted. There have been changes throughout the years. Actually, this last election that we had in November requires some of these be changed because they list specifically the names of the council members that are current, as well as the number of meetings which are held each year. And so with us going from 2 meetings per month to 1 meeting per month, but with the ability to schedule special meetings, it requires amendment of that particular section. Additionally, there has been discussion among various council members of amending section 3.1 of the council rules of procedure. Currently, there are 2 public comment periods during each council meeting, one at the beginning, one at the very end. The first public comment is not limited to any particular topics, and persons in the audience can talk about agenda items or really anything that's on their minds. Then, during each new business item that is on the agenda, persons in the audience again have the opportunity to speak about that particular agenda item. And then the last public comment, which is open for any topic, really appears to be redundant of the first one. And so in the amendments to the council rule of procedures that we've prepared, we have eliminated the second public comment, but of course that's up to council's discretion.
When would this, if we adopted this tonight, when would it be effective? Immediately?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Were you thinking about eliminating the second comment tonight?
Well, we'll see.
There were so many at the first one.
Right.
I'll make the motion that we approve the council rules of procedure amendments.
I'll support that.
There's a motion support. Under 1.1, that has to be updated. It's only the second Tuesday of each month.
Correct.
And then
Yes.
1.3, it's the address is the address 900 Baird Street? I don't know what the address, what's the address of this?
920.
920.
Baird, yeah.
Oh, all right. 920 instead of Broad Street. That's what I saw in my review.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions or comments?
The first two I'm for. Well, obviously with the last election, obviously the changes have to be made to the first two. I just don't feel that eliminating the second public comment, I feel is just kind of taking away the voice of the people, I think. I mean, while it's
Anything further?
it's just kind of. I mean, while it's redundant, it just kind of just feels. I mean, it's just. I don't know. It just feels like it's wrong, I guess.
Okay, Ryan, anything further in that?
No, just
Okay.
just that, I guess.
Okay, Ms. Musgrave?
Yes, with the fact that the public has the opportunity to comment under each agenda item that we discuss, they have the first public comment that they can get their voices heard. They also have each and every item after that they can discuss under new business. So they're really, I mean, they ultimately have the second public comment would be 3 public comments if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
The first, everyone afterwards, and then
I think there's
the second.
I think there's
They're
ample
getting the
time
same
to,
thing.
I think there's
Exactly.
ample time to speak.
Exactly.
Right, they're getting the same
It's just
thing.
cleaning up the schedule a little bit.
Exactly, especially with the fact that we're having 1 meeting per month, and
Right.
a lot is going to be on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll have more items on each agenda.
Exactly.
Thank you. I also feel that this particular council and the previous council have a low center of gravity. I see you people everywhere. Entertaining comments, answering questions outside the meetings, which is as important as an opportunity to speak to the council here. So there's certainly accessibility with this particular council and the previous council. Any further comments or questions?
Other groups, other boards and things that I have attended meetings don't necessarily have a second public comment time either. They, a lot of them only have 1 opportunity to speak and don't even allow what we're adding in there about an opportunity to speak during each agenda item, which I think is a change too. So.
Thank you. Mike, is that your experience too with various meetings?
Well, I see them run the gamut, but the Open Meetings Act only requires a opportunity for public comment. What I do find unusual with you is allowing members of the audience to speak on under each agenda item. That is certainly more participation, I think, than the average that I see.
Once
Just
again.
to throw this out, when I was township supervisor, granted it was up north, different county, but we only had 1, and it was at the beginning, and you
Right.
got 3 minutes, and that was it. So, I mean, ultimately, people have 4 minutes here and the ability to speak under each agenda item.
And we're generally not sticklers with the 4-minute rule. We're pretty lenient with offering the second 4 minutes to speak. So, I mean, that's 8 minutes is a long time to get a point across
Exactly.
if somebody were to get up and make a point.
I think 8 minutes is a long homily, Richard. Maybe
Well,
that's
Baptists talk a lot longer than that. So.
Amen.
I was just joking, Any further comments? All good comments. Any further comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave,
Yes.
Rankin,
Yes.
Alsop,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried. Next item under new business is consideration of the KRCC board member appointments. Mr. Walker?
Yes, thank you. So July the 8th, 2014, council authorized the process of implementing a community center at the Carl Richter campus. Part of that implementation was the approval of bylaws. According to Article 3, Section B of those bylaws, there will be 9 board members, and there will be staggered terms for the board members. So 3 board members would start out with a 1-year term, 3 with a 2-year, and then 3 with a 3-year. And then as those appointments, or as those terms expired, new appointments would occur for the 3 years, which would have maintained the staggering of the terms. Similar to what occurred previously with the DDA, those terms kind of got out of sync. And so they were not pursuant to the bylaws. So what you have before you is you have a set of resolutions that the president selected for board members to fill those terms, to reestablish the proper term number of years each person would be in those terms. There were, besides the standing board members which were on from the original set, which was Marlo Davidson, Joe Mischler, Nick Klemp, there were 8 citizen participation forms that were submitted of persons that were interested in filling those seats, and from those, President McKinney selected the additional persons to fill those terms. So what you have in front of you are resolutions which will reestablish the proper terms for each board member, as well as the persons that would fill those terms. And you can, if you'd like, you can pass these separately, or you can pass all the resolutions as a whole.
With regard to the resolutions as a whole, what's the thought? And with regard to moving them individually or moving them together, what's the choice of council? Together. Okay. Looks good to me. I hope I get this the terms right. Joe Mischler, 3 years, correct?
Yes.
Nick Klemp, 3 years. Suzanne Heupel, 3 years. Marlo Davidson, 2 years. Joseph Hutchins, 2 years. Richard Kinnaman, 2 years. Rick Powers, 1 year. Ray Fenning, 1 year. And Scott Schillig, 1 year. And there were a lot of strong candidates. I think that these candidates represent that strength, much of that strength, and I'm happy to offer this for your consideration. Any discussion?
Well, then I'll make the motion that we approve the appointments to the KRCC board made by President McKinney.
Support.
Motion support. Thank you. Well, I do think that this is a good start to continuing the vitality here and the growth here. And there's been, within 72 hours, I think there's been more activity down here with the senior group having met and more opportunity. So I appreciate your support for the center, and I appreciate the volunteers also. Any further comments?
I think it's good that we have staggered terms, because if everybody's term is up, you've lost your whole board.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. I was involved, or we constituted a brand new board involved in a historical organization, and they had no sense of the information or the history, and it was a very difficult thing for the board members and for the organization too. So having the history here of people who've served certainly helps. And
I think
having-
we're blessed to have her.
I think we are too. Thank you for saying that. Any further comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes. Next item under new business is consideration of the termination of the contract between Village of Holly and Holly Township Parks. Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. In June of 2016, the village entered into a contract with Holly Township Parks in which the Parks Director, Tony Brinker, would become the KRCC Director, providing administration and oversight. So this was an agreement between the parks and the village, not so much between Ms. Brinker. She happened to be the director, and so by virtue of her directorship, she then became our director. I like that. At the December 11th, 2018 Carl Richter Community Center Advisory Board meeting, Ms. Brinker advised that she was going to submit a letter, and did submit a letter, terminating the agreement between the Holly Township Parks and the Village of Holly. This is something that Ms. Brinker had authority to do. She had been given that authority previously by her board, so she did submit it. So we have that before you this morning, really, or this afternoon, this evening, whatever it is.
Today.
It's been a long day.
It was morning when I started. Just to accept the resignation or the termination of the contract. Either party could terminate it. The village could have terminated it. The parks could have terminated it. They chose to terminate it. So really what that does is that starts a 60-day clock pursuant to the contract. In the recommendation section of my memo, I have listed that that will end on February 11th. Actually, it's March the 11th.
Thank you.
That's 60 days. And so during that time then, what will happen is Ms. Brinker will continue as the director. She's offered to stay in place until we find a new director or a different direction, whatever is determined. And so I think that that's a good gesture on her part, certainly appreciated. And so that's what we have in front of you today. Just so that you know, the Community Center Advisory Board has already began discussions of what type of recommendation they would like to make to council in the future about future administration. The advisory board realizes it's a council decision, not theirs, but as advisory, they will be making a recommendation to you. So I have this in front of you. I don't think you really have to accept it because they maybe just acknowledge receipt of the letter of termination.
Can't we just deny it?
Well, you could. I'm not sure it'd do any good, though.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I don't think we can decline to accept it.
There's a,
My question, Jerry, does Tony have the authority to terminate the contract? Isn't this a township? Is this a township sort of thing, or is she?
No, so the Township Parks actually is a separate entity from the Holly Township Board. And so her board, in speaking with her, had previously given her and had reiterated it after the signing of the contract that if she felt the time came that she wanted to terminate that on behalf of the Parks Board, that she had that authority. And so from the village's perspective, I mean, that's, but whatever authority they give their employee, they give their employee. We have no say-so over that.
Okay, good.
I think that the 15th Amendment says that an employee can walk anytime they want. So
They can't talk.
you
They
can
walk.
be sued for a breach of contract, but you can walk anytime you want. That's your right. Any further comments or questions on the matter?
I'll make a motion that we note Ms. Brinker's unfortunate departure.
Support.
There's a motion support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes, motion carried.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
We appreciate your hard work over the past few years.
Very
And thank
much
you
so.
for staying on as liaison or mentor, if we can find somebody to try and fill your shoes.
Next on the agenda, public comment. Members of the public can address council once recognized by the chairperson. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by an additional 4 minutes by a majority vote. Prior to addressing council, we ask that members of the public state their name. Please state their name and address for the record. Anyone to offer public comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Mr. Walker?
Yeah, just one thing to follow up with the community center too. So at the advisory board meeting, we talked about the future and about some current programming that's happening or programming to come. One thing that Tony had started just prior to the holidays was the implementation of a new senior program, and she's going to continue to work on that during this transition period. So certainly we think that that's going to be a great program for the center, a great program for the community. So we're very appreciative of that and her efforts just in that. And she schooled us all a little bit on pickleball. I had no knowledge of it, but I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun.
It's the fastest growing sport in the country.
That's what she said, yeah. So that. And then the only other thing that I offer, so each year, the Fenton Chamber of Commerce, they hold an economic forecast breakfast in which each community goes and kind of highlights what has happened in the previous year, what the anticipation is for the next year. So that breakfast is tomorrow morning, actually. President McKinney, myself, Katie Hughes, and another member of the DDA Economic Vitality team, Jeremiah Roberts, is going to attend that meeting, and we're going to put Holly's best foot forward. And so we have lots of good things to report, so we're happy about that. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Gildner.
I don't have anything to report at this meeting. I took a big chunk of time off over the holidays, as a lot of people did, and so I'm playing catch up. But I've got some things that Debbie has thrown my way, and we'll have those in time for the February meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Bigger.
Nothing much to add to my written report. My staff's busy closing out 2018 and jumping into 2019 to try to get all of that going. And I brought some extra copies of the recycle calendar if anybody wants one. They're out on the table in the hallway.
Boards and commissions. I don't know how constituted you are with the new boards and commissions. We made the appointments, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We'll run at it. Mr. Shield, anything to report on boards and commissions?
Due to holidays, I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. Rankin.
Well, Parks had our meeting last Wednesday. We discussed pins for Parks. That's going to be February 22nd. Tickets are $25. You can pick those up at the village offices or Holly Lanes. So those tickets are available if anybody wants to go purchase those. We have a new little library in Crapo Park. Many of you have probably seen the postings from our illustrious DDA director. She put in some nice photos. Ben Clark, who's a local club Cub Scout, worked on his Eagle project. Say that 3 times fast. That was his Eagle project for the year. I'm happy to say it's a roaring success. The box is up. The post has been placed. Books are in it. Everybody's welcome to use it. Take a book, leave a book. That's about all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Alsop.
Nothing.
Ms. Musgrave.
Nothing.
Mr. Kinnaman.
Nothing.
Mr. Powers.
What did I forget?
No, you didn't forget anything. Just a Cyclone Park. We do have grants into the federal government and to the state government for refurbishing the fire and rescue, with the expectation and hope that someday that will be a senior-friendly park, so to speak. So that has been submitted, and we're just saying to wait and see right now. And I would just give one more plug for Pin for Parks. please come out for it. It's a big fundraiser for the parks. What Chris didn't mention is the money that's raised at that will be used for community events within the park system, whether it be the fireworks or anything else that we need money for during the summer. So please support us and come out.
There are 5-person teams?
5-person teams, but actually it's a 4-person team with a 5th person being a celebrity from the village, such as Tom McKinney.
He's married to a very good bowler. He's,
Right.
he's working tonight on her game.
McKinney. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Council comments, we'll start with you, Mr. Powers.
None.
Okay. Mr. Kinnaman.
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Musgrave.
I'd just like to say thank you, Tony. We have some big shoes to fill, as Chris mentioned, and we appreciate everything that you did for the Carl Richter Center. You will be missed.
Mr. Alsop.
Yes. Jerry, I don't know if anybody ever mentioned it to you or not. Fire Hall looks awesome. I was telling the chief a couple meetings ago about the right side of that blue siding. We need to talk about tearing that off, taking that fence down, cleaning all that up and making it look like the rest of the building and putting up a new fence. If we're going through that much money, we might as well do it right to make it beautiful. It's going to be the nicest thing on the street. I mean, I'm just asking you, Jerry, did you think of that, you guys?
Well, certainly, I mean, that's something we have talked about. Cleaning the building up and repainting it, I mean, that is the current plan. It doesn't mean that we can't ever circle back around and,
we should fix it right
and resurface it.
It looks so nice, and why should that side be such an eyesore with trees growing up? I mean, it just needs to be finished right.
Sure.
And if it takes a little bit more money, come in front of the council, see if we can afford to do it.
I'll bring a chainsaw.
Yeah. What's so definitely clearing the trees out of there, that is definitely something that will occur, and cleaning that all up. As far as resurfacing the outside of the building, I mean, certainly we could get some cost on it, talk about it during budget, but that's not something that's in the original plan.
But it's probably not going to cost that much, cost as much for labor to scrape and paint that old junk siding that's warped without replacing it.
Possible.
I mean, just the thought, it's going to be beautiful, might as well finish it nice.
It is going to be a beautiful building, and believe me, I hear about it every day.
Okay, I'm sorry for bugging you.
No, that's good.
Anything further, Mr. Alsop?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rankin?
Happy New Year, everybody. Get your tickets for Pins for Parks, February 22nd.
Mr. Shield?
Yeah, just was kind of curious as, how the one way's coming on reversal on Junction in Broad Junction and Battle Alley is coming. That's soon.
So that project we look to do in coordination with a proposal that we'll have for first the DDA board and then the village council as far as narrowing the driving area on Battle Alley. So Battle Alley was designed or was previously used for two-way traffic. Right now it's used for one-way traffic, which really leads to a lot of pedestrians walking in the roadway and then having to get out of the way when a car comes. And so we have a proposal that we're working on that will go to the DDA board to narrow the lanes and then expand the sidewalks, which will do two things. One, it'll slow the traffic down just a touch on Battle Alley. It'll create approximately 10-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of that lane, which we think will be beneficial to the storefronts, not only for pedestrian traffic, but also it will provide them an area where some outdoor display could take place pursuant to the village ordinances, as well as some additional tables or benches or seats. And we think it'll really transform that whole Battle Alley area. So when we look at having that proposal for the lane narrowing presented, that's when we will also present the concept of reversing the traffic flow on Battle Alley and then conversely on Junction Street. And really that will accomplish a couple of things. So there are some merchants who feel that vehicle travel on Battle Alley is important because people drive by and spot their shops. We think if the traffic flows from South Saginaw to Broad, that more of that will occur than if the traffic as it currently is now from Broad to South Saginaw, because a lot of times that Broad to South Saginaw is used as a cut-through for people who want to try and avoid the stop sign at Broad Street and Maple. And so we think that you'll get that natural vehicle traffic. If it's shopping traffic, that will occur. The other thing that will happen by reversing the traffic flow on Junction, it will eliminate that blind corner. Right now, if you're on Junction, you come up to Broad, and if there are cars parked, which there are most of the time, on the west side of Broad Street, you cannot see any cars coming from the north. And so by reversing that traffic flow, it will eliminate that hazard also. So that's a good question. You'll look to see that within the next couple of months.
All right.
A proposal, and that will be coming first again to the DDA board and then the council.
So in about 2 months then?
2 to 3 months.
2 to 3?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Okay. I have no comments. Without objection, we're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor? Real cool.
Yeah.
We're adjourned.
No.
I want to stay
Voice
here.
vote.
Let the record show that Debbie
Wants
Debbie
to stay.
declined the motion to adjourn.
Debbie wants to stay within meeting? I'll go along with Debbie on that one.
Oh, okay.